tear. I wanna equip you and use against my enemies, yeah. You see, I wanted to save you and then learn how to raise you, but I forget you from the wilderness.
Eamon, I've got a bit of a confession to make today.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I actually, many years ago, I broke into Loftus Hall, and I was able to get into the tapestry room, which is where Anne was all the paranormal stuff happened basically. But I found on her dresser a poem that I believe no one has ever actually read.
Oh wow. This is so you found a poem that no one's ever read before that I'm gonna somehow have to improvise a second stanza to.
Yeah, I'm going to read it to share
Wow.
it with our audience right now because
Please,
I think it's important. This poem, and I believe it was actually written by Lady Tottenham from Loftus also. Here we go. It was a dark, cold, and stormy night. I could not sleep, try as I might. Over and over, tossing and turning, for some slumber, my heart was yearning. When all of a sudden I hear a knock on the door. Who could this be? It's 4:45. I get clothed and rush to answer. The man is drenched and asks, may I come in with polite manner? Of course, sir, you can. Go use the guest room. But let us talk tomorrow, for I must rest soon. Now it's tomorrow, we talk and play cards. Our guest is very good, to beat him is hard. Whoops, I've dropped my card, the man says with glee. Reach under the table and fetch it, he says, looking at me. I look under the table, excited to see pubes. Instead what I see is 2 cloven hooves. Ha ha, you wench, I've tricked you, you see. My name is Old Nick, and I've come to claim thee. He burst into flames and rose through the ceiling, and ever since then, I'm left empty feeling. So, that's the poem. Sorry.
That's really sad. That's really sad. I think the second stanza of that goes something along the lines of the weather in Hook is mighty aggressive. When that woman fell for Satan, her family became oppressive.
Oh, okay.
And upstairs she did go. Was there a baby in tow?
Oh, I like what you did.
And if there was, are its bones in the wall? We might find out on Halloween's fall.
Oh.
But as for now, there's not much to do. But put in your headphones and listen to me and you. I can't rhyme anything with it.
that was actually pretty good for improvisation. So mine obviously was fairly heavily prepared, but yours was quite good for an improv. So shouts out to you for that one.
I'm just trying not to make it talk about sex because that's usually it's just all about like funny, silly. So that tried to stay semi-serious. Thanks.
Yeah, you did well. You kept on rails. Yeah, you did. What's up, everyone? This is Rob, and with me is
Eamon.
And we are Monster Fuzz Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, guys, as usual, it's Monster Fuzz Podcast at all the social medias, and we are on everything. We are on iTunes, we are on Spotify, we are even on Deezer. Deezer is one of them apps like I imagine like 12 people use, and like the people that do use it wear like hemp and burlap sacks with like dreadlocks.
Is that like Huawei's fucking
kind of like that
app? I gotta yeah.
It's the people that wear it wear like shoes made out of like wood and stuff like that. So shouts
living
out
in a cave with abacuses.
Yeah, so shouts out to my Deezer people. And if you're listening, do shout us out on Instagram. And also at the end of the episode, I'm going to give a little shout out to those of you who have been giving us feedback and all that, because that's cool. So we'll do a little bit of that after this episode. But today, if you were from Wexford, this place needs absolutely no introduction. Me and Eamon, I suppose this place has been looming in our conscience our whole life, really. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, pretty much. I remember hearing the story that you eloquently made a lovely poem about.
Oh, thanks.
When I was very, very young, very young. So Yeah, totally resonates with me. I think they might have done some sort of ghost, like paranormal nights in Loftus Hall, and I was never able to get to one of those, but I did go out to one in the Duncannon Fort, which we might do an episode on some other time.
Yeah.
But fun times going around looking for old Scratch, as they used to call the devil.
Yeah. So Loftus is it's now really become a sort of international place. It's one of the most haunted places in Ireland, and we are lucky in that it's in our county. So, like we said, we grew up hearing tales of Loftus Hall, and actually, when me and Eamon were young, Loftus Hall would have been a functioning hotel. So it closed down in about 1993, I think it was, and it stayed derelict for about 10, 20 years. Oh no, sorry. It closed down in like 93 I think it was open until maybe 98 or 99, sorry. And it's actually in the timeline on the notes. But in any case, it ended up falling into disrepair for 10, 15 years. But now it is actually open again. So that's kind of cool. And you can do tours and all that, which is nice. But we are talking about, we're trying to separate all that type of stuff and just talk about what we heard growing up. The original story that led to the place becoming so haunted, and this is also our first ghost story. Eamon, is it sort of kind of shadow people, I suppose, or ghosts as well?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, shadow people is probably the closest one. It's like this is like the first, let's say, haunted place we've done.
Yeah. That would make sense. Yeah, and there's more of those to come as well. So yeah, join us as we tell the tale of how this legendary manor became Ireland's most haunted building, and it is said to be haunted by not only ghosts, but the devil himself, aka Old Nick. Did you know I only found that out recently, that Old Nick was a name for the devil?
Yeah, when I was doing research for a different episode, I found out Scratch was the name. Or no, sorry, that it was the Shadow People. Scratch was the name for a devil as well, but I'd never heard before.
All right, okay, yeah. So there's quite a few names. But yeah, Loftus was always one of those really spooky places that it was a cool place to see. And if you guys aren't familiar with the area, Loftus is kind of situated on a peninsula. It's like this really windswept, imposing, spooky area where it's known as the Hook Peninsula, and it's a spit of land, and on that land is the world's second oldest operating lighthouse, which is known as Hook. Yeah. But yeah, it's really atmospheric down there, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, some of the waves that you would see crashing against the coast when you're out in Hook are just phenomenal, and as well, you're talking about the road that Loftus Hall is on. Is a long stretch of road, which I imagine in the dark and when there's nobody around, which would be quite often in Hook. I can imagine that's quite nerve-wracking. And even any times we've kind of driven up to the place, I always get, and it's just because of probably all the stories I heard as a kid are imprinted on me, but I always get a tiny bit spooked out if I'm just walking around the grounds or whatever, Granted, I haven't been there in a long time, but
it's an inspirational type of place. There's definitely an atmosphere, a vibe that would inspire you in some sort of way. Yeah, maybe it does spook you, or maybe it sort of, on a nice day, it's it has a totally different vibe. So it's definitely
that's true.
Yeah, it's definitely a really interesting place. So if you haven't visited the Hook Peninsula, definitely go and check that out. It's definitely worth it. But the name Hook Head was said to be from a phrase called by hook or by crook, which was a vow made by the awful arsehole Oliver Cromwell, who's popped up a few times now, to take Waterford by Hook, which is on the Wexford side of the estuary, or by Crook, which is a village on the Waterford side of the estuary. So yeah, that's apparently where that sort of thing came from.
Yeah, that's like a Dunmore, is it? Across from Hook, is it Dunmore East?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, so it began, like, Loftus Hall began life as a castle known as Houseland Castle, which was erected by the Redmond family way back in 1170, so a long time ago. Around the time of the Black Death, the Redmond family replaced this castle with another. This one was known as Redmond Hall. And rumor has it that this was built on an ancient pagan sacrificial site. So that's something. Apparently, that area is sacred land. And that's one of the things that I learned about.
So this is linking in with those kind of Indian burial grounds, all that kind of the energy of the old kind of, I suppose, Celtic people in that kind of pagan sacrificial site.
Yeah, it's got some of that. But yeah, it's worth saying that at this point, if a building can hold memories, then Loftus Hall would definitely have memories in buckets. It's almost 1,000 years old, and it's survived things like the plague, the famine, and worse yet, Oliver Cromwell, which is actually worse than the famine. Battles have been lost and won in the halls of Loftus, and it's an important part of Irish history. So if you want to check out the history of Loftus Hall, there's some parts that even intertwine with the Irish Confederate Wars, and there was battles had between the owners of the house with against armies with cannons, and they were fortifying the doors. It's really interesting. One of the things that I thought was really interesting when I read about it was that the doors were that substantial that cannon fire couldn't open them.
Wow. What were they made out? They were just like
big wooden. I'd imagine they were just big, heavy slabs of wood, probably very dense. Dense wood, and
2 meters. Kind
of.
Yeah.
Probably.
Jeez, crazy.
So it was from the 16 to 1800s that I believe Loftus Hall was sort of restructured into the building that we know about today. And do you want to tell the people about when the Sisters of Providence moved in?
Listen up, people. In 1917, Loftus Hall was bought by the Sisters of Providence and turned into a convent and a school for young girls interested in joining the order. By 1983, it was purchased by Michael Devereux, who reopened it as Loftus Hall Hotel, which was subsequently closed again in the late 1990s. I think 1993, is that what we were saying earlier?
I think it's actually later. I think it was 98, 99.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And it's currently owned by the Quigley family. So that's all grand. But realistically, Rob, what the people want to hear about is the spooky stuff. Is that right?
Yeah. So I just, a little small tidbit of when the place was open as a hotel. To the best of my knowledge, right, and this is kind of cool / spooky, when it was operating as a hotel, the alleged haunted rooms and stuff like that were still boarded up and no one went into them. So that's kind of spooky, right?
Yeah, and I guess what you have to remember as well, I know they do the ghost tour and everything there now, so obviously part of the whole tourism part is, to kind of generate interest based on that whole spooky folklore about Loftus Hall. But it wouldn't sort of make sense from the running of a hotel. Do you know what I mean? To have a room that you can't generate any profit off.
Yeah, so it's definitely, the superstition ran deep throughout the lifespan of the hotel, and also then obviously even to this day the superstition is still there and it's put out. So yeah, the spooky stuff really, we'll get into it now, is the infamous devil visitation is really the main story of Loftus Hall. It's the one most people know about. So Charles Tottenham became Lord of the Manor. He had to adopt the Loftus name to inherit lands and title as per instructions of Nicholas Loftus in 1752. By marrying the Honourable Anne Loftus, daughter of the first Viscount Loftus, and they had 6 children, 4 boys and 2 girls, Elizabeth and Anne. However, his wife became ill and died while the girls were young. 2 years later, Tottenham married his cousin, Jane Cliff, as you do, and they lived together along with Anne in Loftus Hall. Do you support marrying cousins, Eamon?
Just marry whoever you want as long as it's consensual. There you go.
Okay, that's an interesting hot take there. That's very, I suppose that's very liberal of you, to be fair.
I think it depends how hot your cousins are. If you're marrying some bet-looking cousin, I'd be like, you sure? Well, if you have a super hot cousin, you don't see him, you see one of those cousins you only see once every decade.
Right.
You got that sexual energy in the air whenever you're in the room together.
Let's stop none of your cousins.
Born around the same time. You know, I'd say Tottenham was like, because it's not like they're seeing their cousins every Sunday back then, right?
No.
Because their cousins are all spread out. They're all royalty. Royalty are inbred as fuck anyway.
Mhm.
So like Tottenham is probably like, my cousin Jane Cliff looking pretty good. You know, he was in. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
go
well,
on, Tottenham.
yeah, go on,
Dirty
sure.
yoke.
So do you want to talk about the evening that Charles Tottenham was resting in his home?
Ooh, one evening as Charles Tottenham was chafing down. No, sorry. One evening, Charles was resting in his home, 1775, with his second wife and the daughter from his first marriage, Anne. So young Jane's gone, is she?
Yeah, by looks of it, Jane has gone somewhere. I don't know where she is. Jane is there.
Man,
Jane is there, and
this
the daughter,
is before,
the daughter,
before
Anne,
Anne dies, right?
the Anne is there. Oh, okay, well, spoiler alert, but yeah, Jane.
Although he said his wife became ill and died when the girls were young in the last part.
That was a different. Yeah, that was his wife. She died, and then he married his cousin, and then the daughter from the original relationship is Anne. The cousin is
Jane.
is Jane.
The cousin's Jane.
Yeah.
See, I was thinking he was getting. I think he maybe like had like a second cousin once removed. Or something. Okay, right.
No.
So
Anne is the daughter from the
Anne's
previous
the daughter
relationship.
from. Did he have any kids with his cousin?
Well, we'll find out, I suppose.
Oh,
You know?
this is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one evening Charles was resting in his home in 1775 with his second wife and the daughter from his first marriage, Anne. So that's where I got confused.
Right.
While the Loftus family were away on business. During a storm, a ship unexpectedly arrived at the Hook Peninsula, where the mansion was located, and is still located.
Mm-hmm.
A young man was welcomed into the mansion. Anne and the young man became very close. Now, he's not even a cousin, so like this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Not even a cousin. So one night, the family and the mysterious man were in the game room playing cards. In the game, each player received 3 cards, apart from Anne, who was only dealt 2 by the mystery man. And I'd say when he did that, she was like, "Oh, he's playing hard to get.
Yeah.
2 cards. I'm supposed to get 3."
Yeah,
like,
cheeky scrub.
He knows what he's doing. Yeah, he knows what's up. He's this flirting, this card flirting. We've all done it. So a butler serving the Tottenham family at the table was just about to question the man when Anne bent down to pick up another card from the floor, which she must have dropped. And it is said that when Anne bent over to pick up that card, she looked beneath the table to see that the mysterious man had a cloven foot.
Oh my god. And then what happened?
Dun. And it was then that Anne stood up and said to the man, "You have a cloven foot." And the man floated from his chair and flew towards the sky, smashing the roof as he went, leaving a large hole in the ceiling. Maybe that was, Spring Heel.
Boing up through the roof. But so one of the legends that we would have heard when we were very young in Wexford was that the numerous attempts to repair this hole in the ceiling had been undertaken, had been completed, and the hole would come back. That was what I had always heard. There was this hole could never be sealed up, and they had tried numerous attempts. And I was delighted to know that the hole still remains there to this day, which the pictures are actually pretty spooky, aren't they?
Really spooky, yeah. Like it does look like it looks like kind of there's the bath is leaking upstairs and it's just going through the drywall or whatever, or the plastering. But it's really strange that like that looks like something that would be easy just to replaster and seal. Do you know what I mean? You just plasterboard it, paint it when it sets, off you pop. Yeah,
apparently it has been attempted, and that was always the urban legend in Wexford when we were young, was that they'd attempted it, but it never had actually happened. So Anne, soon after seeing the devil, became mentally ill, as you would do.
And let's remember, she's not from the cousin marriage. She's from not. Like a non-cousin marriage.
She's from good stock. It is believed it's believed that the family were ashamed of Anne and locked her away in her favourite room, where she would be happy. Yeah, out of everyone's view, which was known as the tapestry room. So that's where I snuck into and got my poem. I managed to find it on the dresser in the tapestry room.
That she had left there for you.
Yeah, she must have done, yeah. Or maybe the devil made it appear for me so that I could read it and give it to all you guys, you know, as a gift.
I think so.
Yeah. So she apparently in the tapestry room, she refused food and drink and sat with her knees under her chin, looking out the tapestry room window across the sea to where Dunmore East is today. Shouts out to Eamon there for pointing that one out. Waiting for her mysterious stranger to return until she died in the tapestry room in 1775. It is said that when she died, they could not straighten her body, and as her muscles had seized, and she was buried in the same sitting position in which she had died. So, an interesting point that I should make here is Anne Tottenham's actually a real person. So that's like, you know, it's not this like fantasy story that we're talking about where it's like, oh, let's, you know, even when I was, when the devil was writing the poem for me, he was like, oh, should I jeer too much because it's actually a real person that died? And then he was like, no, I won't.
Yeah.
And so then I appreciated that when I read it. I didn't have to actually get too uncomfortable. But yeah, so
that was very nice of him.
Yeah, well, he's good to
the devil to bear your feelings. No, he would be. I did hear now. You know, you're talking about her. She wasn't able to be moved from her sitting position. Oh, I heard that as well as a kid. But I actually heard they had to get a special casket made for her. That was sort of like I don't know. I suppose some sort of an egg shape, I guess. And
them
that's
orange
what she
boxes
was buried in. You know?
like boxes you get a lot of oranges in or something. Put them in one of them.
Like a punnet. Put her in a punnet.
Yeah, one of them things. And I mean, so there's another version of the story which suggests that Anne was pregnant and was locked away by her father and stepmother to avoid a scandal. Another really interesting point that Eamon brought up in his poem was that locals at the time said that skeletal remains of a tiny infant were found in the wall of the tapestry room during renovations. You had heard that before, obviously, Eamon, yeah?
Yeah, I'd heard the same. So like there's the folklore story where, you know, the devil, you know, because I mean that obviously doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, how come they only saw his cloven feet when he sat down under the table? Was he wearing shoes and then took them off? How did it work? Who knows? But you know, I heard that it was some sort of a cover up, if you like, or a story to cover up the fact that, or to, I suppose back then, to get pregnant out of wedlock was such a terrible thing and such a big deal that it was kind of made to take shame away from the family or something like that.
Yeah.
You have to remember, this is hundreds of years before the Magdalen laundries were shut down.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So this is it's a sort of a serious thing to happen back then. So if it is that a sailor came in and, you know, had a roll in the hay with Anne, he's back on the boats, she's pregnant, and basically maybe they're even saying that she's mentally ill and just firing her upstairs, or, you know, concocting some story to to save face. Well, because there's parts later when you talk about them trying to make sure that, you know, that they didn't want peasants around because of the, you know, royals calling over or whatever. So it kind of lends itself to that idea almost, to just save face and avoid the shame of what would have been seen as a terrible time. Yeah,
so the family themselves were trying to woo royalty to the house, and that's why it was so grandiose and why it was such a big, expansive building. And I mean, really, like Loftus Hall, guys, it's a mansion. So like, it's kind of like the Resident Evil 1 mansion, you know, it's a huge, imposing building. This isn't like a small house. This isn't like, you know, this is a big spot. Like, it's a mansion, you know, it's a big ass mansion. And like I said, it was a hotel at one time. So, but like you made a good point. At the time, it would have been a problem for a more or less in the area, a royal family, for their daughter to get pregnant out of wedlock, or to even get pregnant by someone that they didn't deem fit for her to get pregnant by, or she could have liked someone that she wasn't supposed to like. Another take on it is that the family made it up as the devil had come to the house and the house was haunted, so that beggars wouldn't visit. Apparently, like, beggars used to visit Loftus Hall very often because it was such a big structure at the time, and there was so much poverty in Ireland at the time. You would imagine that a lot of beggars would have come down that way, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose, to keep the place looking fresh and sparkly for the royals, they want to make sure that the superstitious peasants don't come knocking on their door.
So it sort of makes sense in a way, but it also doesn't really make sense because, I mean, if you're trying to woo Queen Victoria or whoever it was at the time, you probably don't want her thinking that there's a devil in the house either. So
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
maybe putting that one out was not really a good idea. But the tapestry room is the epicenter of paranormal activity within Loftus Hall today. So several Protestant clergymen were summoned by the family to put a stop to it, but none could rid the house of its evil forces. In their desperation, the family, themselves Protestant, called upon a Catholic priest, which, in Ireland at the time, if you were a Protestant...
That's how bad things were, ladies and gentlemen. That's how bad things were.
Yeah, literally. Like, for those uninitiated... Ireland was basically, and still is in some areas, in the middle of like sectarian sort of violence and all that type of thing based on religion, and Catholic and Protestant is a big issue. So for them to call in a Catholic priest, just for a bit of context, my great granddad was Protestant and he wasn't allowed to be buried with my Catholic great granny. So that will show you that was early 1900s. So. Yeah. For them to call in a Catholic priest at the time is a very sort of bizarre type of thing. So his name was Father Thomas Broaders, and he apparently was successful in cleansing the house of negative forces. It's popularly reported that his gravestone contains the inscription, "Here lies the body of Thomas Broaders, who did good and prayed for all, and who banished the devil from Loftus Hall." Though there's no evidence that this inscription ever existed. I don't know, like that's such a weird paragraph. Like, I read that and I was like, okay, and then so it may have been on his grave or it may not. Is basically the thing. Eamon, do you want to talk about the vandalism of religious idols, which I thought to be quite interesting when I was researching this episode?
Absolutely, yeah, and it's a common thread in kind of not poltergeist activity, but spirit hauntings or whatever. When you see these religious idols or religious items as well, just getting it's like the what I've read before in some sort of demonology text is that they like to make fun of the divine, and they use these crosses and stuff like that to do that in their own little spooky way.
I woke up one day and my knock holy water was poured out all over the floor. I was raging.
Well, yeah, see, I'd say you'd need to get Thomas Broaders Jr. in maybe to have a look at that.
I was listening to Joe Duffy today, and there's some lad selling knock holy water and rosary beads for $5,000. And people were buying it.
It's not one of those televangelists in the US, was it?
No, he was like an Irish guy, and like people were actually buying the it was like 4 medals and knock holy water for $5,000. So,
but sure, the lads hand out the medals for free if you just walk around town long enough.
Yeah.
They just give you it. Now they have a fairly shite, the little blue thread for a necklace part. But just walk around town long enough, you get free medals. I get 4 and 5 sometimes, and then I sell them on for only 10 and 20. But I might up my price now since this fella's doing that.
You should do 5Gs, man. It's there for the taking.
That's terrible. But you've seen this. Have you ever seen those American televangelists?
Yeah.
And they'll be like, they have an ad, and they're all like, you just send me everything you can, and God will give you 3-fold the amount of money. If you can only afford $1,000, give me $2,000, and God will give you back 8 and 9 and 10,000. Just lads going broke, trying to give these fucking devils who are masquerading as preachers their money. Madness.
Yeah, it's mad.
Anyway,
it's mad because it's such a departure from traditional religion where you're supposed to be a man of no earthly possessions and all that type of stuff. It shows you for one how crazy it is, but it shows you as well how like disenfranchised and jaded people are that follow that type of mantra, because that is not the case. For you to be holy, you don't need to put out any money. It's a free journey if you want to be a man of faith, shall we say.
This is it, yeah. And the only one that you can kind of say is sort of like, because you look at even like the Pope and the Vatican and everything is this massively ornate, beautiful place. Now, to be fair, the new Pope's fairly good. He got rid of the giant throne that looks like it could make the tea for you or whatever, and he just got a regular chair and stuff like that. So he's, I think, bringing it a little bit back to what it's supposed to be.
Right, fella.
But yeah, when you see these kind of places, it's crazy. Like, look at the Buddhists. The Buddhists live without anything. I like the Buddhists.
Yeah, Buddhists are cool,
become a Buddhist.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, they're good lads. Go down to Govinda's now. They give you an old vegan curry.
Soy boy.
For €1 after 8 o'clock.
Go down and
soy boy, yeah.
Go down and get soyified. The soyification.
The soyification of losing my religion, but then find it again because I'm getting cheap soy dinners down in Govinda's. Right, okay, I'm going to go on. The vandalism of religious idols. A large statue of Christ on the cross is situated in an alcove on the stairs of Loftus Hall, and the statue apparently frequently goes missing, only to reappear in different areas around the house. The statue is said to be left there by the order of nuns, who we talked about way earlier, who were in the property during the early 1900s. So, according to a fella named Aidan Quigley, the current owner of Loftus Hall, he says that the crucifix could be in any room.
Right.
He says that it could be in any of the 22 bedrooms, the hidden chambers, and the secret passageways. At first, I thought it was the workmen having a laugh. Added the former local farmer. Jesus, added the former local farmer who bought the hall with his siblings in 2011 and reopened to the public as a tourist attraction in 2012. So he spent 5 months living in the house while it was undergoing renovations, and he concludes that there's more dead than living around here. What do you think of that, Rob?
Yeah,
personal experience.
Yeah, there's actually, I had heard a story about a few guys that had went out to Loftus Hall allegedly one night at 1 a.m, and those guys didn't actually know that there was owners of Loftus Hall at the time. And
how many of those guys were there that night?
I think from what they told me, there was 3 or 4. Was it 4 guys? There was 4 guys, I think, is what they told me. And I'm trying to remember the story properly. And those 4 guys, at 1 a.m, went onto the Loftus Hall sort of premises, shall we say, the surroundings of the building, and they actually went around the back and they seen there was a porta cabin with this guy in it, so that actually might have been Mr. Quigley. Now that's what they told me. I don't know for sure, but what I'm trying to get at here, allegedly, is that Aidan Quigley might have been lads fucking with Aidan Quigley or something when he was out there, you know what I'm saying?
There might have been what with Aidan Quigley?
There might have been lads fucking with him, like, do you know what I mean? Like, he could have been out he could have been out in a porta cabin and people could have been like, do you know what I mean, trying to trespass, shall we say.
But like, what sort of 4 lads would go out there trying to mess with the person who was just trying to reinvigorate the local tourist economy of Loftus Hall? You know, they'd be, I mean, certainly to my mind, possibly more despicable than the devil who burst through the ceiling that can never be fixed.
I mean, yeah, that is pretty despicable. Another actual, this is a story that involves me. This one, that one is unrelated, though. I don't know how it was that one. But there was another story in about 2006 or 7 when the property was totally vacant. That we, me and my cousin and his then girlfriend, we went out to Loftus Hall in the middle of it. It was a summer's day. It was a lovely, clear day. And we went for a walk up to the building itself, and we got on the roof of the. There's a roof. So Loftus Hall is this big, massive, boxy looking building, right? And then there's to the right if you're facing it, there's kind of like a, what you would call, it looks like an extension, I suppose you could say. It sort of keeps the
Is
motif.
this the one that used to be boarded up with the? I remember around the back there's a place that was boarded up with a load of plywood and stuff.
Yeah, well, the whole place was boarded up with that plywood, yeah. But this extension is directly attached to the building. So we got up on a wall, and we got up onto the roof of the extension, and there was skylights there. And my cousin, who was inebriated at the time, got into the loft crawl space. And I was like, man, like, because it was like the start of one of those shit horror films. I was like, you know, because I could see down onto I suppose it was like it looked kind of tiled. It looked like a kitchen maybe. I was all fucked up and like dilapidated. And I was saying to him, I was like, man, if you fall and like break your ankle, because like we could drop down into it. I was like, if either one of us breaks our ankle dropping down into this, we're actually fucked. Like, you know, you're not getting back out. It was a one-way ticket. And would you like to be sitting in Loftus Hall with a broken ankle, Eamon?
I wouldn't, but like the one thing I would say, knowing your cousin, is he's probably more full of spirits than Loftus Hall is most of the time. So I wouldn't worry about it too much.
That's a very good way of putting it. It was like dead.
He's like, one of my favorite people in the entire world. But yeah.
There was all dead pigeons and all in the loft space, and he was getting in. I was like, man, you need to get out of there. Like, this is not a good environment. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But so
fast, Abby, sure.
Yeah, literally. So that's just a little story from me. And to be fair, it did have a spooky environment. And listen, people, this was a different time at Loftus Hall. Loftus Hall now is like a commercial entity where it's, you know, it's run by people. At the time, it was basically a dilapidated shithole that no one was doing anything with. It kind of seemed like it was just going to be demolished. There was talks of, but basically it was up in the air. So yeah, we went and checked it out at the time, and that was kind of it. So definitely don't do that now, because Loftus Hall is a totally different place than what it was then. I mean, I don't think you can even get in there anymore, really. I think it's all sort of...
No.
Yeah, it's all
I'd say it'd be quite hard to do that now. Like, before you could just wander around the grounds and there's no security. Like, no. I mean, what damage are you going to do to a hotel that's already dilapidated in bits anyway? Do you know what I mean? What are you going to do? Go in and try rob a radio? Like,
yeah, well, that's it, exactly. Like, but when the Quigleys bought Loftus Hall, they found 56 statues of Our Lady and other Christian icons, all disfigured in some way, all with their heads missing, which have never been found.
I don't like that now. That makes me feel nervous.
Yeah, and ancestors of the mansion's original owners, the Loftus family, are believed to have dabbled in the occult and black magic after opening Loftus Hall in 1666. So,
of course.
I mean, right, we know ourselves, we're Irish, we grew up in this. Is it possible that the locals didn't really like the Loftus family because the Loftus family were probably Protestant and maybe looked down on them, and maybe, like, we're quite, you know, we're like, was this basically a thing where people were talking shit about the owners and saying, oh, they do this, they do that, they're sex people, they're having, like, sex parties in Loftus Hall, and they dabble in the occult and black magic? What do you reckon?
If anyone's going to be dabbling in the occult and having strange eyes wide shut parties, it's like super rich English people in the 1600s.
Very true.
Yeah, you know. I don't know. It's a hard one to know. Like, the other thing as well is your man Aidan Quigley, like, part of his business model is to sell this as a haunted, spooky place. So if he's like, I found loads of statues and there was no heads and the eyes were gone, and you know, the devil was in there actually having a chicken burger from Burger Mac, but sure, the nearest Burger Mac is in Wexford town, so it'd be impossible to get it. But black magic for you. It's
if you or I went out there and seen it, it would be a different story. But I think that the lads, of course, no hate, but they're in the spook business, so take that with a grain of spookiness. Do you want to take a quick, tell us a little bit about the 2014 ghost picture that popped up of Loftus Hall, which is quite a famous picture. I remember it being shared around pretty much all social media at the time. And this was just, when Loftus Hall was open and back in swing, really.
Yeah. So it's basically the photograph who was taken by 21-year-old Thomas Beavis as he was browsing through photos on his camera. And he noticed these ghostly figures of a young woman and an older woman in a window. The picture itself, there are people walking past the window. It does look a bit like a reflection, but I suppose you can't see anyone else in the reflection. It's a strange picture. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, search. Yeah, for those listening, if you want to check it out, search like Loftus Hall ghost picture is going to be like the first thing that comes up. It's more than likely a reflection of some description, but it's at a weird angle. I kind of, what I took from looking at it is maybe there's people below. Do you see that little blonde head there at the top or at the bottom? Sorry.
Yeah.
That might be the mirrored picture there at the head at the bottom, and then the head up above might be someone behind her further back. I don't know, but it's an interesting picture.
I suppose what's interesting is that there's a lot of other people walking around, you see, but it's only those two that are showing up as the reflection. So I mean, that that would sort of show the argument that it could be a ghost or whatever.
Yeah, it's a very interesting picture. Definitely worth a look. And I mean, in a place that's super spooky and super haunted, this would have to happen. Like, you also have to ask, like, does this, I don't see many pictures like this where people are like, oh, reflective ghost pictures. You know what I mean? You don't see them that often. So for that to happen in Loftus Hall makes it a bit more crazy, I think. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Yeah, it's a fair point. Like, look, obviously, you'd be erring more on the side of not a ghost because, any picture that even looks like 100% ghost now, how good people are with Photoshop, but definitely an interesting one. And definitely that place has enough weird stuff about it to make you imagine that it would, it would be a haunted place or would be spirits living there. So that sort of makes sense.
Yeah,
from that point of view.
So we've sort of read the facts now. We've gone through everything as best as we can, and that's basically the legend of Loftus Hall. But to sort of speculate and talk about it a little bit, what do you reckon? Like, what do you reckon of the original story? What do you think could have happened? What's your take on the hole in the roof? What do you think of the whole thing?
I'm not too inclined to buy into the devil story, personally, but I do think that maybe something bad happened to Anne, and she did get pregnant. Maybe it was, an awful case where maybe someone sexually assaulted her, got her pregnant. She kind of had some sort of a mental breakdown after that. There was all this mad stuff with the family kind of hiding her away, and the skeletal remains of the baby in the walls. Maybe a really tragic story, really disturbing, harrowing story like that. And maybe after that, Anne herself, after dying, left some sort of really horrible energy in the place.
Yeah, this is what I was going to make. This is
like a portal.
Yeah, this is the point I was going to make. There's, if you don't want to believe in the devil story, there's definitely ample opportunity to believe in probably the reality. And if you believe in ghosts and not the devil, which I suppose you kind of really have to believe in ghosts and the devil because they're like kind of, they're hand in hand really. Then, it is very possible that Anne would haunt the place if obviously there was a lot of trauma involved in whatever happened. And I think, at the time there would have been a lot of people at Loftus Hall, I'd imagine, both travellers coming through, probably a lot of workers on site. There would have been a lot of just people trading. I'd imagine it was the hub of the Hook area. And the Hook area is actually quite deceptively large. It's, even from Loftus Hall to Hook Lighthouse is a little bit of a walk. It's not as close as you think when you get down there. So I can imagine it being quite a bustling area full of people, and I'd imagine hearsay and just rumors were spreading fairly quickly. And I would say that at the very least, maybe maids or someone like that knew that Anne was locked in a room and knew that she was like traumatized. You know, the other theory, I suppose, if you don't want to do the pregnancy side of it, is that maybe she was just, maybe she developed schizophrenia or something like that, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, I suppose back then, mental illness could have been thought to be the work of demons or the work of a devil. So maybe this story is kind of an allegory for what actually happened, you know?
Yeah. I personally, I don't know. It's really interesting and it is fun. Loftus Hall has always been a place that was fun to speculate. Our whole lives, it was always kind of like fun to talk about the hole in the roof and all that type of stuff. So I enjoy it. I think it's a really cool little tale. I think possibly, fuck it, I'm going to say the devil came to Remen. He was there. he was there.
Fuck it, I'm doing it.
Yeah, no, he was there, and there's a ghost haunting the place. No, I don't know. What I would really like to do, and you heard it here first, people, I suppose, is eventually I would love to record an episode on Loftus Hall. So we'll try and make that happen at some stage. That would be like a goal, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, do like a live video episode or something, and do maybe a ghost stories episode down there. It could be really cool. Try and get into the tapestry room and record one overnight or something, just to spook it up and see if we can feel something, you know.
Oh, we definitely feel something. Probably poo in our underpants, because I'd say no matter whether you believe or not believe, I guarantee that will freak you out.
Yeah, I actually thought about that. I was thinking about it here after I'd done the notes. I was sitting here one night and I was just thinking about, you know, recording an episode down there as like something to do. And I was actually getting anxious thinking about sitting down there.
Yeah.
So I would imagine it would be quite anxiety inducing once you actually get there and set up your gear, and it's, you know, you're left there on your own and it's dark and you have a few candles or something maybe.
Yeah.
That would probably make you poo. But in any case, as I said earlier, look, Anne was a real person. And she is buried somewhere in Wexford. I couldn't find where. So maybe if there's any listeners from Wexford that do listen to this podcast and have some info, please let us know at monsterfuzzpodcast at gmail.com, I think is her email address. And apparently her grave is cemented over. So that's kind of unusual, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
to keep something inside, maybe.
I think that maybe, I don't know, there could have been something weird there. But another popular theory is that she actually just died during childbirth, and that was that.
Oh, okay. Right.
So it could be a thing where it could have been a little bit of column A, column B. She got pregnant, the family didn't really approve, so they were like, you're going to be locked up until you have that child, and when you have that child, we will get rid of the child and you will marry someone that's suitable or something like that. And maybe, you know, she died during childbirth, and that could have been it.
Yeah. And that would have been quite common, like, you know, back then, especially with families refusing to allow you to marry someone else, you know. So
yeah.
that totally could have happened.
Yeah. So I think that wraps up Loftus Hall. It was a fun little episode there, guys. I hope you enjoyed our first sort of proper foray into the more spooky side of things. And we also have another episode coming up about more spooky side of things. So, so there will be more of that. Eamon, do you have anything to add about the spooking of Loftus Hall?
Just remember to stay safe. It's all right to go off with your cousins. But never go off with the devil. Never go off with the devil, because you're asking for trouble. Because whatever about being too closely related by blood, this man is a demonic entity. And it's just, I don't think it's a good idea to get off with him at all now, to be honest. And I wouldn't judge you for it, because I'm sure he's a very charming man. But just exercise a bit of caution there, lads. Yeah,
you managed to dodge homophobic slurs this episode, but you went on to incest instead. So you've went...
Yeah, but I support it. I support it. Between consenting adults, I support everything. I support, and the homophobic slurs is a joke. I support everything as long as people are consensual and they're happy. You can do whatever you want. Just be good to people.
Okay.
Just be good to people.
That's a good message. And before I go, I would like to give special shout outs. This is special shout outs for our regular listeners that are in the early days, just as a way to commemorate them. So shouts out to Roy, shouts out to Adam, shouts out to Brian, shouts out to Dempsey, shouts out to who else have we got there? There's a lot of people that listen. Shouts out to National Introvert Society, actually. They're sending us some t-shirts, so shouts out to them. Is there anyone else I'm forgetting about here? Oh, shouts out to Eugene.
I think you might be. I was going to say there's a guy and his name is... Bear with me for 2 serious seconds.
He's out there interacting with us and shit.
Straight hustling.
Yeah, he's out there on these streets hustling.
On these streets hustling. Is there a guy called Timothy?
Yeah, that's him. That's him. That's the national. That's the
Timothy Scott. Timothy Scott O'Brien. I get you.
He's the introvert guy. So, shout out to all of you guys. We do appreciate it. We really do. At this early stage, it means a lot to get the feedback and get the to be able to chat about episodes. Shout out to Kevin and Fergal as well. They've been listening. It's just nice to get to know how we're getting on, what you guys enjoy and all that, so it kind of helps us shape future episodes also. So yeah, I think that's about it, Eamon, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, shout out to Kira as well. Do you want to shout out your missus? Because if she listens, she'd be pissed off.
I'm not shouting out any. I shout out Timothy. I said Timothy, thanks. Everybody who knows me, thanks.
We forgot our Maz.
Oh, shout out to Anne and Catherine. God damn. My ma actually doesn't listen to it.
No, they didn't. My fucking ma wouldn't listen to me fucking talking about. My ma doesn't listen to me talking about normal things. Never mind talking about fucking ghosts or whatever. My ma's one of the most ignorant people you'll come across anyway. Like, she just won't. Like, she's like you'll say something and she's like, yeah, whatever. And it's like, all right, okay, cool.
That's a snippet. My ma is one of the most ignorant people you'll ever come across. Right there, that's a snippet.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god.
Put that on wax.
Oh well, my ma's a saint.
Yeah. Your ma is like good. My ma's like chaotic evil.
my ma's like, what would you say? Hey, I don't know what are the 9 things. Chaotic evil.
Yeah.
There's chaotic something and something.
Your man's probably neutral good. Or like lawful good. Is that one of them?
Probably neutral good. I don't think she'd be lawful good because she, but she'd be neutral good.
My man's chaotic. So we should do an episode where we just shout out everyone for like an hour and a half. We just list out names because people would really like that. So that should be the next one.
I'd say that'd be a popular episode. Yeah. Just if you hear a name that you've ever heard before. Oh, I've heard the name Damien. No, a different Damien. It was a different Damien.
Yeah, so if it was down to Eamon, lads, he wouldn't talk about any. He hates all of you, so...
hate all yous.
Yeah, he's not interested.
Except you, ma.
And he hates us also. That's about it for this episode of Loftus Hall. I hope you enjoyed it, folks. And it's bye from me.
And bye from me.
Woo!
Swallow your soul!